I'm going to call the meeting to order at 8:23 p.m. It is Tuesday, March 10th. This is the Planning Board's meeting. Today, we are going to go through updates on Springtown meeting articles. We have two petitions to go through. One is 12 Lockland Road and one is 184 Mystic Valley Parkway. We'll go into new business, not known at the time of the posting, any action items that we need to take care of, and hopefully adjourn by 10. So to begin with, we're just going to quickly go through some comments. You had a meeting last night. Did you want to update the board on it?
Yes. So I had a meeting last night. Maureen was there as well at the Personnel Board. Before the Personnel Board was the potential permanent position for an assistant town planner. And they had a unanimous vote to put that in the budget before town meeting at $60,000.
Great, that's excellent.
I will say that they did question the amount, and I was thinking the same thing. It's what we thought was reasonable. The manager
It was the
supports
average of the comparables.
Right. Even with that said, I do think we may, they questioned whether that was in the right class.
Right, it was whether enough money.
Right, and
Enough
there
money?
may be.
60K was enough.
It may turn out that it's a revolving door at that level. So, you get somebody in who's pretty much straight out of school or 1 year out, and you end up with 2 years and they're off because an assistant and at that level salary. So it's just something to keep in mind.
Yeah.
We'll take what we've got and accept it and say thank you. It certainly meets a standard, but it would not be surprising if it's something that doesn't give us the kind of stability we want.
That's good to know. Any other updates?
Washington at Swan, is there any movement?
Washington and Swan is potentially back with the original builder. At this point, we are really not going to figure anything out until it closes, so we're going to wait till the property closes. It's supposed to close sometime next month, hopefully. So
Okay.
I really don't know. I don't have lots of specifics or definites of any of this, to be honest. So, but we're hopefully going to be in talks with them once they close.
All right.
And then just for future agendas, local historic district, we were wanting to have a discussion about that.
Right now, we have a lot of backlogs on our agenda.
Yeah, okay,
I'm just trying to focus to make sure this gets done. The master
Right.
plan is which I'm pointing to.
Yeah, no complaint.
But yes, we have.
So myself, and it's unclear how many members from the local historic district study committee, but it looks like John Clemson will be able to come. So at least on Monday the
Monday?
Yep, Monday the 23rd, we're going to be before the select board.
Oh.
I know you were asking about when it was going to be before
I
here.
think we have some, can offer some ideas too, because I think it's needing
But
some.
we're before them. They put us on the agenda for the 23rd for an update and discussion.
Okay, good.
So if you're interested, I would suggest coming to
No,
that.
that's not what I'm wanting.
Okay.
No, that's not the goal here. The goal is to think about ways to get some movement and guidance, I think, from our experience, so this can, I think, move forward.
It might be good to tell that, or maybe in a
No,
communication.
that's not the right forum, I think.
They're in charge of it, so.
Yeah, no, understood.
And with that in mind, Dennis Carlona as well.
Right.
Is he under contract?
Dennis Carlone is, all the signatures have been done, so technically he's under contract, but not all the PO hasn't been created type
Okay.
of thing. But there's nothing, there are no issues with that. As an on-call design consultant, the contract would go through the end of this fiscal year, and then we wouldn't do a contract extension, we would just do a new contract July 1st.
And then that's back to the agenda too. I think we were wanting to, or I think it was a consensus to have some discussion with him about how we see the Center Business District development playing out, because we've been getting these presentations that basically we've been responding to what's being put in front of us by the development teams. And I think to step back and have one meeting where we talk with him about what we think and what he thinks, and a dialogue about what is the right scale and
Definitely.
approach to those.
That's great.
One thing, and I just want to jump ahead because this there's something in this Cape Cod tree thing where they talk about a chapter about needing to get, you have to approve provisions of chapter 593 of the Act and Resolves of 1989, which allows towns to establish special accounts to hire consultants. Do we have anything, could we maybe just look into that?
Sure, that's not just 53G?
It says chapter 59, I don't know.
Oh, it's
Sounds like that's a
probably
typo.
there.
That's a typo, I think. It's 53, it's probably 53G.
Anyway.
You look it up.
I can certainly,
Yeah, there are no page numbers on this unfortunately, so I can't
Yeah.
point you to it, but
What number is it near? 7-1?
it's 6.9.8, thank you. It's right at the bottom of the page.
Oh, it's 53.
yeah, it's supposed to be 53.
It's
That's-
supposed to be 53?
The Acts and Resolves of 1989?
Yeah,
Right, that's what that is. It's
okay,
53.
okay, then that's fine. Then
So it's
that's
just a
nothing-
typo on there.
Nothing new,
They have a
Okay.
typo, we don't.
okay.
We did not have the type.
Go quickly to the town meeting articles.
Yes.
This will be much quicker than was anticipated based upon a couple of things. So, one, it seems like this is actually gonna be our only one that's just ours, meaning that's this, at the very least. This is just a flat-out mistake in 9.5.8. It's referencing special permit, but it's in site plan review section. It should say site plan instead of special permit. That is it. That's one whole article. I believe that's the only planning board article that we would be, at this time, putting in front of town meeting. This other one was based at the time, this clear cutting bylaw. Basically, we found out now the difference between the closing of the warrant, which is this Friday. Usually there's several weeks in between, sometimes up to 3.5 weeks in between that and when final language needs to be given. There's been a protocol change starting this spring, that time is like 10 days, basically, so that it only gives us one more meeting, and it's before we would meet with the Conservation Commission.
Who made that protocol change? Who makes
It's,
that
it's
decision?
all in the manager's office.
Because usually we post, then we have our hearings before we submit the final language.
There can be little tiny changes based upon, there certainly can be changes, but in terms of what goes out that gets printed, that's now happening. So we have it on the 13th of March, and then it has to go to it has to be completely done by Wednesday, the 18th, in terms of final language that we would be putting forth. It could change, meaning that after our public meeting, after our public
That
hearing.
works with the actual, because we are one of the only boards that has to have hearings on it. And so, does that really work with the planning board's responsibilities to give? It's something that.
It's something we should talk about with the manager's office, I
Okay.
would agree. Either way, it would still give us one more week to come to some agreement with the Conservation Commission about a bulk of the bylaw, which also makes no sense.
Yeah,
So I think it makes sense for us, we're supposed to meet with the Conservation Commission on the 24th. I think we should start this conversation with the clear cutting bylaw so that we can maybe be completely done with this by the end of summer. And then we're
Sounds
just, and then, we could give it to the manager's office in summer for the fall, or finish this in July or whatever.
So for clarification, this is a Concom article,
This was a sample bylaw.
but do we have wording from Concom?
No, that was what the meeting on the
We
24th
haven't
was
started.
supposed to.
This is going to take
So
time. This is not.
Yeah, no,
like,
yeah.
just
Okay,
Cool it.
Baby steps.
Okay, so we're way in early stages on this.
And that's why I was like, well, because the agent was saying, the conservation agent was saying, should we meet? And I was like, yes, definitely, let's meet and let's start moving so that,
Yeah.
we can go on a consistent, maybe we meet once every, couple of months just to give a check-in or whatever it might be. I don't know what the answer is.
And is this particular one, is the Concom looking at this, or was this?
I gave this to the Concom
Okay,
so that we
okay.
could all at least start,
So they don't have any language at all yet?
nothing.
Okay, that's all I
It's
need
gonna be
to
a
know.
blank, totally blank on the 24th, so
Okay.
we can talk about where to begin.
and I just gonna give more information real quick. For anyone who's on WinCam listening, the clear cutting conversation that's been going on, it's in the master plan as well, is that there has been some major trees that have been taken down due to development and also full clear cutting of lots. And there's nothing in our laws that can prevent that from occurring. And there's been ramifications of that throughout town, and so we're looking at ways to make there be reasonable restrictions or things in place to stop that from occurring and causing impact to our community. And so that is what we're looking into, starting to work on with Concom. And you said that was March 24th
Fourth.
is when we'll start meeting with Concom. There's also other groups that have come before us and, well, have sent us communication asking as well for us to start taking the lead on this. So that's what that is referring to. And then,
this last one, number 3, this is actually not ours, but it was mine, that I was doing for, the Rangeley Park Heritage District Commission. They're just adding a new property,
can you see it?
and it's this property here. So the only change, this is a general bylaw change or a code of bylaws change. And the only change is the map here, that it's gonna incorporate this new property. This is the language, but it's really just a change in the map.
And
The
where's
oth-
that road where's the road that it comes off of?
So
On the map,
this
it
is
doesn't
Meadowcroft,
Yeah,
and it's
Oh, that's
actually
on.
fronts, so this is the frontage for 9 Meadowcroft is actually here, and then 9 is here. This is 7 Meadowcroft.
okay.
Okay, the other thing that is not necessarily ours, but I've sent this week, a member of the CBD community named John Stevens has hinted that he's trying to get 10 signatures, that he most likely obviously will get 10 signatures of the people that live around the Wedge Pond area around 654 Main Street. This is in response to 654 Main Street, Fells Hardware. And specifically wants to change the height limits in the north core from a by right height of 45 to a by right height of 40, and the special permit height of 65 to a special permit height of 60. So reduce them both by 5, just on the west side
Right.
of the street. The reasoning being that this is on the side that is, that has residential, residential neighborhood behind it. However, it is on a main street. The idea that 40 feet would be a by right height, well, the fact that you could build the same kind of single-family home anywhere, but you, at 40 feet, which is allowed anywhere in any residential district.
That's
that
why
you-
it's 45. Did you
well, so I explained some of this, but I was like, this is really, it's not really, I'm just kind of letting you know the mindset of how this,
Yeah.
how this is working. The idea is that also because that this is meant to be a mixed-use area, that first floor is gonna be a little higher than a normal first floor, because you have to have the idea is that one, Fells Hardware would continue to be there and would need more than a residential height ceiling. And then we started getting into a conversation about, well, the town common has lower heights as well, like why is that? And it's like, it's to prevent the canyoning effect, the idea of shadows. And then we started talking about, it's like, well, it could diminish property values, and I was like, there's no study that we've done. He was asking whether we've done a study if it would diminish property values of having tall buildings along Main Street. And I was like, you could try to find some studies. I don't know if you're gonna find any that it's gonna say that having a brand-new building that looks nice, I mean, maybe a different building could be different, but the idea of having a new mixed-use structure on a main street that that's supposed to be kind of the commercial center of town, being near something like that probably would enhance your value. But I'm not saying, I was like, I don't know, but you can go try to find that, but you're probably not going to.
Yeah, I would imagine.
So he's trying to, he's trying, right? So he's trying to look at several different ways of how he could sell this. And I said, look, you're talking to me, but really you would need to come before the board and see whether or not this is something that, one, they would entertain, or two, if they don't have the time to entertain, which we really don't, because it's due today, it's due the 13th, the final language for citizens petitions. So although for us, we just do a placeholder, but it's final language for them on Friday, then you would really be looking for the planning board to get some type of, recommendation. So, you would want to visit us at some point soon. So heads up that this might happen.
Mm-hmm.
I personally, I don't think it makes a ton of sense, but I'm still open. I have not completely closed off from talking about this. I don't think it's like a foregone conclusion that there's no way I could support this. But I think you would need a lot of, saying that it's going to diminish property values, like that's not going to do much because there's no proof that something like that could happen even in a comparable town, or, I just don't see how that's gonna work. I think that's almost like a scare tactic, for development.
The CBD zoning also has a requirement that when you are up against the neighborhoods, like you are at the property that's driving this, that you need to
Step down.
step down to it.
We haven't seen, but what we've seen is pretty big. I mean, both the last go-round and this
Yeah,
go-round.
well, they're massing and they don't have the negative spaces
So-
out of that massing. But that is part of the
Yeah, well,
discussion.
His point is whatever you guys want, just if we could shrink everything down a little
So
bit, it
I
would make
mean,
it better
This is
for
an
us.
If they
overall
do,
just height.
they will be going to 60 feet, so it's not like they're going to 40, they're going to go to.
They're always
I mean,
gonna go to
They're
the
gonna go to 60, so 60 up
59.
against a residential is pretty big.
I also mentioned to him right next door, 666 Main, that's almost 4 stories in some places. It's over 200 feet wide.
Well, it's big.
It's really big. So the idea of a newer structure that might be a little taller or whatever, that somehow this would negatively affect your property worse than,
Well, that's not the way you do planning.
well, I'm just trying to,
Yeah.
I mean, he's making the argument.
I'm not sure about property values, it's just impact, period.
There will
Yeah.
certainly be an impact, and I don't know that we can hold out 666 Main as example of what we want to happen.
Right.
So, because
Definitely not saying that.
it looks huge to me when I look at its height. I'm like, wow, that's a really big building. So it's set back a bit, but it's certainly very tall.
Yeah,
So I don't know where, I mean, the point of a special permit is a special permit. We could always deny it at 65 feet and say, we'll do 60. It's the only one that I think has any meat to it is a vegetarian, I shouldn't say that, is the 45 to 40. But I think your argument about
The commercial space.
it's a commercial space and it's not, it really is on the widest street we have downtown. So it really is, I don't see canyoning as an issue, and it is prime real estate that we want developed, so.
well, I think we have to get more information.
I was just
haven't-
giving him
He-
feedback
I mean,
since
yeah,
it's
he-
Wait
different.
till it's filed and then
Yeah.
that is part of our, by law, we have to
bring it to town
advise.
meeting.
No, we don't have to.
We don't bring
It'd
it,
be a
but we-
citizen's
we
petition,
have
we
to
would recommend, we
advise.
would make a
Yeah, we
recommendation.
have to bring our recommendation to
So
town meeting.
let's
It's
see
not us
what's-
bringing the
Right.
article.
Yeah.
We're not sponsoring the article,
Correct,
but we do have to do the work behind.
analyzing it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think, so basically, we have a clear, tiny mistake that will change. This is not happening now, this is not part of the planning board, and this is something that we're gonna have to react to. So there's really only one for town meeting.
Do you
Um,
need a vote on that top to submit it?
I do.
Okay,
Oh, well, go ahead.
I move that Article 1.
Yep.
Correcting zoning bylaw 9.5.8. Or, I don't know if it's, whatever it is, your Article 1, be placed on the warrant for spring 2020 town meeting.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
3-0 vote. All right, let's move on to our petition number 390012 Lockland Road. I do need to recuse myself on this one, and so I will, please let me know when you are done.
I think,
Let me just, give me 10 seconds here.
Oh, that's enough time to get some chocolate.
no, oh, yeah, that you do, yeah, you can share with our, viewers. That's good. You can't do it before bed, though.
Okay. Lockland.
Ready? Well, I guess I'll jump in. You're going to present it, aren't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And we're not going to be able to make a,
it's only gonna have to, it's gonna be
it's
a,
going to be comments.
it's,
really.
exactly, it's gonna be comments, because it can't be an official vote, because we don't have a quorum voting.
Correct.
12 Lockland Road, so this is petition 3900. Petitioner seeks a special permit to be permitted to construct an addition that will be located closer to the side property line than permitted as of right. The property is located in the RDA 20 and has 30,000 square feet. So first off, the only thing that makes this property non-conforming is lot width. RDA is one of the, it's the only zoning district where the frontage and the lot width are different. it forces, the frontage is 100 and the lot width is 120, so it forces the lot to kind of expand as it goes backwards. Every other zoning district, it's a square, so the frontage and the lot width is the same. So that's the only difference. That's the only nonconformity. So they're proposing to destroy a one-car garage with associated space above and create a new two-car garage with living space that will encroach on the left side setback. So it's going from 20 feet to 15.3. So generally, this is a new nonconformity. Generally, new nonconformities should be avoided. The other houses on the side of the street as the petitioner have two-car garages with the occasional one-car garage. Most of the houses actually sit in the middle of the lot and do not have any side setback encroachments, so this would be a little bit different for that. However, based on the size and specifically the location of the proposed garage next to by far the largest house in the neighborhood, I kind of found it a little hard not to really allow any relief on that side for anyone who living in there who's seeking relief. So based on the lack of adverse impact on the neighbors or the neighborhood and the use of matching materials, I recommended favorable action with regards to this petition.
Yeah.
Can you put up a Google map of this, in particular the overhead view?
Yeah.
My main concern, and I mostly agree with what you say, I really don't like nonconformities. And if this were in a smaller zone, as it were, I would say no. But yes, the house next to it is large. My main concern are the three large trees that border it, and the fact that, at least, I think it says one of them will come down, and there's a note on the, I don't see a landscaping plan on this either, other than, unless I missed it, other than a note on the, it calls it a conservation plan, so maybe that's what that they may have to take 3 trees down. And these are these 3 trees.
I suppose, yeah.
It's these 3 right here. And if you look at the street view of this, you'll see they are quite large trees.
Yeah.
And so I realize there's a lot of land in the back, and it's all wetland back there. But the fact that these are very close to the street, and they provide a buffer between these two, the large house and the smaller house, which currently has solar panels. I'm really concerned about that. And so I would, I don't know what to do about that.
Something like planting, I mean, obviously, the idea of planting mature trees is right on the border of kind of
Well,
unreasonable. Like, yeah, yeah. So the idea of replacing some number of trees is certainly worth talking about, or could be a recommendation. Or
yeah, I mean, the point is they do serve as a buffer currently. I don't know how far, I don't know how big the roots have to be. I don't know enough about the trees to know what the drip edge is and how that all relates to how far the roots. I think the roots go out to the drip edge. I don't know what they are for this. They're taking 5 feet away from the setback, which means there'll be less room on that side of the house to plant them. Here we go. Yeah, and those are.
Well, it just seems like, yeah, they're nice trees, but the first goal is to do the best you can design-wise, and I do think the 2-car garage is properly it's designed to fit with the house on that location.
I agree, I agree.
And I think a 2-car garage is a perfectly reasonable
more than half of them have that.
amenity in a neighborhood like this.
No quarrels
So-
with it. That's my only concern.
So that's what happens. So I do appreciate when you can accommodate trees, sure, but first and foremost, we've got trees that we've planted, and if you want a quick-growing tree, you can get a quick-growing tree, and I think it's,
Well, a quick-growing tree isn't necessarily the one you want.
right. So I just think at times trees come down, and you do the best design first, and then you work. I just think this is, I would recommend this. I would go forward with
Trees
it.
come before the garage, so.
Well, I don't think that's,
Well, we're just giving comments here, so we don't need to craft votes.
Well, then I
Yeah.
guess
So-
we don't agree.
So we'll just just,
Right, so one comment is, you would
I
have
think that the
favorable
design-
action.
Yeah, the design works well with the house, and a
Design works well.
two-car garage is a desirable addition to the house.
I agree with that statement, and I just have a concern that 3 mature trees will be taken down.
Maybe our proponent, who's
concern.
here, could express some love of trees and interest maybe in planting a tree that's slow growing.
We noted, a lot of trees on the property, and we fully intend to,
Plant a tree.
yes,
Well, my concern is with the trees near the front of the house. Because in part, these are, although it's on private property, those are from a public view, and they do add to that area, because if you drive down Laughlin, you just see mostly houses right now, and then every now and again, very rarely do you see trees.
yeah, no, so
The other
our
side is
intention
better
to
at that.
put trees on the same line, but further back.
Okay.
So you'll still see, I mean, there will be obviously, unless we get fast growing trees, I'll look to hear what those are.
The fast, you want the fast ones, yeah, slower
They'll be
better.
The same line, but just further back.
Fast ones. Maples are fast, oaks are slow, so plant the oak. You want the oak.
Bring it out.
Yeah, I think the point is, yeah, closer to, and it is a problem with the wires, and man, I actually will admit, I yelled at one of those N-Star type subcontractors who went out with this buzzsaw.
But there's a place
But
that they
there-
could put
I
it
think
closer
there
if
is
they
somewhere
wanted.
between the new garage and the
Actually, yeah.
utilities, yeah.
Last winter, a branch from that tree fell and took down the wires, so they were very close to the wires
Yeah.
and all of that. But, I mean, it's actually an interesting idea to think, we hadn't thought of bringing stuff forward.
Yeah,
And
no,
are you-
We'd
I
only
think that's a good
thought
idea
of
too.
bringing back.
When they
So
are
it's something we could
slow
definitely-
growing, you actually can kind of keep up with the utilities. We did
Yeah.
that, come by my house sometime, you'll see that we actually had to work with letting them grow out.
Yeah.
And then we had, basically, we were trying to beat or get ahead of the utility people who come with their,
Actually, if you see the other side of our property.
oh yeah,
Split
and that
into
would
trees
be,
on the other side,
Yeah.
there are a bunch on that
Yeah.
side. Right in the border there, so we do definitely have trees kind of coming on that side, and then maybe that's what you're talking about.
we're
too?
maybe,
Yeah,
something
no.
like that would look
I-
really.
I
That would be
think-
great.
the idea though is a shade tree, something that actually
Something,
makes it
yeah,
to
with
60,
canopy,
80 feet, canopy that,
So the only two comments I have are, design works well and a two-car garage is appropriate for the house. Concerned that 3 mature trees are being taken down, consider moving,
or adding,
considering
planting,
planting trees towards the front.
well, even a tree.
Yeah.
Trees are big. One good big tree would do it.
Are you planning on putting some sort of vegetative buffering between, because you're gonna lose that shade or that buffering.
Yeah, we definitely are, and we're actually working with the neighbor, so that we can kind of collaborate.
Oh, that's
on something.
nice.
It's like this, we worked with our neighbor on this, to do this side.
Yeah,
So
it's
we're-
pretty.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, excellent.
Brian, did you have any comments?
They have a preliminary drainage plan, so I provided some comments on that. I do think this is going to be subject to a notice of intent.
Because of the wetland?
Yeah, we're,
And then go through the notice of intent process, I believe, so I think that would kind of get flushed out more in that case.
Great. All right, well, I have the two comments that I'm gonna
Yeah,
forward to
no
ZBA.
vote, yeah.
We'll move on to the next one
I'm leaving, as I
Thank you.
promised, I'm leaving at 9, so.
at 9.
Yep.
Okay.
Ciao.
All right.
Okay. Bye.
Bye, thank you.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so we'll have another situation, I guess, where we don't have a full vote. It'll just be comments.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you. See you.
right,
These
see-
for my kids.
You can take,
Take whatever you want.
yeah, no, take as many as you want. Anyone
Well,
else
no, I-
would like some chocolate? Now's the time. It's quite good.
Chocolates and coffee?
Chocolates and oranges.
no coffee.
One for each member.
Okay, so, on to 3901, 184 Mystic Valley Parkway. So, I was gonna give my, quick analysis, then I think we would have the petitioner come up. So petitioner seeks a special permit to be permitted to construct an addition that will be located closer to the side property line and will not meet the open space requirement. Property is located in the RDB 10 and contains 6,296 square feet. So the petitioner proposes to add living space to the rear of the house on the first and second floors. There are currently 5 nonconformities on the site: lot size, lot width, lot frontage, and both side setbacks. The petitioner is asking for relief on open space. This is not typically something that we see before the ZBA, as our open space requirement is rather generous. I understand that smaller lots certainly tend to have more zoning compliance issues. We see these types of lots often. But the open space requirement is almost always adhered to, even if the side setbacks are encroached upon. So we see a lot of side setbacks that are encroached upon, but not a ton that are outside of the 30% lot coverage. So I appreciate the use of materials and the design of the structure, but the fact that there would be this new nonconformity on the property that would make a 6th and new nonconformity, I kind of had some issues with of really promoting that. The petitioner should really look at the open spaces of the other houses on the street, simply because there are pockets of neighborhoods where maybe these types of nonconformities are kind of a regularity. So there could be, so I that was the information that I had given the petitioner when I first saw this, was that you should really look at some other houses in the neighborhood to see how many are actually breaking their open space requirement, because we really don't see it very often. So I think then a case really could be made that the petitioner is proposing is consistent with the rest of the neighborhood. So I recommended unfavorable action unless this open space requirement could be adhered to. So if they could adhere to the open space requirement as is, I have no issues. I would recommend favorable action. But at this time, there's simply too many nonconformities on the property already to add another. Really, in my mind, would not be good practice. And that's all I had.
Oh, here we go. I'm looking at existing square footage.
Did you pull up the,
Yeah, I'm getting the house right now.
oh, did you pull up the macros by any chance on it? Is there one?
No, I didn't, but the historical commission, they had no issues with the addition.
And design review?
I don't know what design review, I don't think they've met.
Design review is tomorrow
Yeah.
night. I guess I would say that the historic commission, not have any objections, I think they appreciated that we were preserving the architecture of the existing house, which is kind of a lower story. Can we, I don't want to interrupt, but.
No, I'll invite you to the table when we, give me a minute.
So the historic commission, I'd say, was favorable. They seemed to appreciate the design, that we were not affecting the front of the house, and that we were keeping the addition to the rear. And just DRC is tomorrow night.
So it's this 184, so this is almost entirely consistent with what the proposed facade will look like, though the work is mostly out the back, or it continues out through the back. I do have the plans if we wanted to bring them up, but this is the street shot.
Actually, there is no front elevation on our plans.
We're not affecting the front. The additions to the rear, it steps in on both sides of the rear, and it's lower than the ridge of the existing house.
Where is it? Well, while Heather's digging for whatever you're digging for.
Go ahead, yep.
I have no problems with the design. I do, though, share Brian's concern about the added nonconformity. The question I have is, how much does this need to be shrunk in order to meet the
Open space
the
requirement.
open space requirement? So they're losing essentially 4%, 5%. And I'm
4%.
trying,
4%.
no, 66.1 to 71.3, that's 5%.
That would just have to be under.
Yeah, I'm just saying what you're, yeah, no, I understand, it's just, it's a delta right now that I'm looking at. Yeah, you're right. But I'm just trying to, what I'm trying to understand is, given the current footprint, which is 1044, and how,
So the addition is about 350 square feet, or maybe 330 square feet of footprint. And to reduce it, you have to reduce it by about 250 feet. So
Right, it would
pretty much,
make it impossible.
pretty much once we add about 100 feet, and it's,
Okay.
the lot is so small.
okay, right, so it would put a crimp on how big you can put it on. Although your addition claims it's, okay, never mind. 424 on your drawing A2.
Yeah, we're adding more space on the second floor because the rear of it has a kind of a shed dormer to the back, but the shed dormer doesn't actually reach the back wall.
Oh, I see.
So as part of the new design, we're actually making a bigger version of that shed dormer and extending the back wall of the second floor to align with the back wall of the first floor. So we're adding sort of a swath of like 2 feet by the width of the house. So
Yeah,
I don't know what the number is, but there's something like an extra 60 feet or something on the second floor.
yeah, I misread your diagram, yeah, it's 352 for the new part and 72 additional for what you're adding to the existing structure. Yeah, so that's a problem.
Brian, did you have any comments?
So for this one, there, after going through the plot plan once, there was some clarification that there's actually approximately 366 square feet of patio being removed out back. And the footprint of the addition is smaller than that. So what we've been doing that would require a infiltration system because it's reducing the impervious footprint of the yard.
So is there, so you're saying that because the patio and the two patios are coming out and that's where the addition's going?
The same, yeah.
It's the same,
You
so
have to
it's-
infiltrate the same, it's the same as what it's,
It's
there's,
that-
it's actually less, 16 feet,
Yeah.
right?
Okay. All right, if you'd like, you can come to the table and do your presentation.
You guys must be tired.
Yeah, we've been here.
Just starting.
Starting?
Yeah?
Do you have one more after this?
No.
For the last ones, all right, so that's Tina and Michael over there, and you guys can come up. if you want. And I'm gonna try to give you sort of a 5-minute version of this,
That would be great.
because I think everybody's.
5 minutes is about us.
And I'm gonna just try to hit a couple of key points, or what I think are key points. So, this is the house colored in yellow. Tina and Michael have owned the house since 1997. It's almost 23 years. They have a 16-year-old and a 19-year-old. They actually added the front porch to the house in 2003 or 2004. Very pretty, very handsome house porch. Almost looks like it was part of the original house. And the context of this property, and I'm sorry, 'cause I'm blowing my time here. I thought I had it. So you've seen the front of the house, and if you're driven by, everything else on Mystic Valley, for the most part, are much larger houses. They're 2.5-story houses, where this is a kind of a 1.5-story house. And really, the intent of the homeowners, to their credit, was to try to preserve this lower scale house, which is a longtime resident of the town and as a practicing architect in the town for about 25 years now, I think it's really important for us to be keeping diversity and not just having every house become a 2.5-story center entrance colonial. So I think the spirit of what they were trying to do is to be applauded. The goal is really for them to add a room off a kind of a nice room off the back of the house so that they can have a family room, so that they can enlarge their kitchen, and so that they can have a master bedroom suite. And that's the purpose of the addition. They're not increasing the bedroom count. They're adding a second bathroom on the second floor, so the upstairs is going to go from 4 bedrooms, 1 bath, to 4 bedrooms, 2 baths. And these sorts of changes are exactly why the Zoning Board of Appeals was charged, 20 years ago with this process. So I know this is the planning board, and ultimately, you all can say what you think you should be saying. But I think this is the kind of house, and this is an undersized lot. So as a for instance, if you look at all of the other lots on their side of Mystic Valley Parkway, they are the smallest of the lots. And on this drawing, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 lots. Of those 9 lots, 6 of them are 9,000 feet or more, and then 2 of them are bigger than their lot, but kind of more comparable. So to some degree, I think they're being punished for having an undersized lot that was established in 1911. And I think the zoning relief process is specifically for this kind of situation where homeowners are committed to living in their home, and they're trying to upgrade their home with a better kitchen, a family mudroom and back entry, and family room, master bedroom suite. Those are all the kinds of things that houses that were built 100, 150 years ago didn't have, but that everybody seems to want in this time frame. And I also do want, so that's kind of my heartwarming speech, or trying to be heartwarming. The other thing I just want to say to you about lot coverage is, from my point of view, lot coverage is a bit of a, not a misnomer, but it's a little bit of a blind path. The intent of lot coverage is to limit people from building houses that are too big. That's the point of lot coverage. So lot coverage, and also build houses that are too big for their lots. So those to me are the 2 intents of lot coverage. So I did, and I don't know if you saw the email that I sent to everybody yesterday, but I took the 22 properties, the 7 or 8 on their side, the 6 or 7 across the street, and then the 6 or 7 directly behind them on Myrtle Street, and I did an analysis of finished area from the database, from the assessor's database. So right now, of these 22 properties, there are 5 houses that are less than 2,000 feet, theirs being one of them. And even with this addition, which will jump them up to 2,500 feet, they will go from being the 5th smallest finished area house to the 6th smallest finished area house. So all of these other houses on Myrtle Street, across the street of Mystic Valley Parkway, and on their side of the Mystic Valley Parkway, of those 22 houses, there will still be 16 other houses that have considerably more square footage than them. That they will be jumping up to about 2,500. There are a number of houses that are in the 3,000s. There are a number of houses that are actually even 4,000. So I think all of this is really unfair to a property owner who's actually seeking to do the correct thing. They're not tearing off their roof and building a whole big second floor. They're trying to preserve a different type of house type to the town that's very visible to the town. And I understand, and I respect Brian's point of view on this, and I respect this gentleman's point of view, but I really disagree with you. This is exactly what we should be trying to approve, is a homeowner committed to their house, not doing anything crazy. Their house is going to be 2,600 square feet. That's not a large house by any standard these days in town. Houses are 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. You see all these larger houses coming before you. So I get that you don't want to create a new nonconformity, but I think, to tell you the truth, I think that's fairly illogical. This is a small lot. It's too narrow. It doesn't have frontage. It doesn't have lot width. It doesn't have the correct, it's not 10,000 feet. That's why we're here not meeting lot coverage, is because it's a too small a lot. So I think they're just being punished for having a lot that's too small. And that's my presentation. I think this is what you all should actually be approving and not fighting against. I don't know if you guys want to add anything to this.
Hope to stay here for 20 more years. Probably until they wheel me out, so. Kids are growing up, and we don't mind having a smaller house. We just want to live like we wanted to live.
Can you explain to me why you chose the sizing you did? I usually, we don't go into this detail, but when I'm looking at your plan and I see that you enlarged bedroom 4, you did the master bath with a fairly large shower, and then you have the big wide master bedroom with the big family room. When you see the furniture, you can pull everything in tighter to reduce the size of it?
So this is the dormer that exists off the back of the house that you can't see from that photograph. It's on the opposite side. And when you're in that dormer, I don't know, I think it's maybe 6 feet to the point you could, it's 5.5 feet, you could barely stand, and it's really bad headroom. So the idea was to basically tear off the roof, tear off that, but we're keeping a little remnant of it, but to tear off generally the shed dormer and build the roof bigger to give that swath of space that I was talking about. So let me just pull out the 2nd floor for a second. So we're trying to give that little swath of space to the back of the house. Master bath, master closet, kids bath, trying to enlarge that bedroom a little bit so that it has, right now if you literally go, their bedrooms, the house is like 2 minutes from here. If you walked into this bedroom, it's all angles
I
and
can
slopes.
see it in the elevations.
Yeah, it's just, you can almost barely put a piece of furniture in that bedroom right now.
So you did that for the head height, and the master bedroom and the family room, why'd you set it to be that dimension?
What's the 16 feet by the 18 feet?
Yeah, for the two.
That felt like a good, it finishes off as a 15 by 17 and a half family room. It's actually more driven by the family room than the master bedroom. But I think it makes, they're trying to create a family room with a nice fireplace for themselves, and that's what it feels too big.
Okay. Just to correct you, I don't want to speak for you, but I sat on the planning board when we created that open space, and there are other reasons for why that open space percentage was set the way it is.
Well, actually, no, the 30 has been set.
But we reviewed it again recently.
The 30% has been on the books for
For a long time.
35.
But I think it's been only, so to address a comment that you made, I went through the database, had a hard time finding anything, so that's why I didn't mention it. I spent about an hour and a half with Janine, who was nice enough to go through all of the various files, and every time we found a plot plan, there was no lot coverage on it, because it's only in the last few years that everybody's actually paying attention to the 30%.
So you actually have to go and figure, I can see how that could take.
It's a new requirement we put on.
Well, no, I agree with what you said. I've been doing this since the late 90s, so 30% has been around for a really long time, but maybe this is a criticism of the surveyors, but the surveyors that do the plot plans have been, I think, a little bit sloppy over the years. They have not been putting lot coverage and and that part of it is new. But even going back 15 years ago, the house that was built at 178 Mystic Valley, the red house that was built after the fire, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, that plot plan 9 years ago does not have lot coverage on it. That house was essentially a brand new house. So I agree with you that it's been on the books. I also would point out that nobody seems to have been enforcing it in a meaningful way. And if you look at, so I'm going to pass a board around to you.
No, well, you don't need to. I was just saying that we have discussed it many times at this table.
But I think there are numerous, I can't prove it, but if you look at this house, and you tell me we're over on lot coverage, I can't believe that 181 Mystic, 183 Mystic,
some of these on Myrtle, like look at this grouping on Myrtle, 8, 10, 12, 14. You're trying to tell me that those 4 aren't on lot coverage also? So I don't have the facts here, but I'm gonna tell you, I think there are a number of houses
They're either
Five-
close or over, yeah.
that are over, and maybe even potentially more over than us, but I can't prove it to you. But I mean, if you look at that diagram of 10 Myrtle,
Yeah, no,
that looks like it's 50%. Look at that one. I mean, these look way more than this. So I'm a little frustrated, which is maybe coming through, and I apologize for that aspect of my tone, but I'm frustrated that I'm dealing with a 6th nonconformity to a house to a lot that's so undersized that, and there's so many other non-conforming houses in this area that clearly don't meet side setbacks.
Right, so all of Myrtle Street and this side of Mount Vernon, these are all, except for 2, these lots are very, very small.
Right.
Half the size.
Right, and look
of
at the
this one.
finished area of some of these houses.
Yeah, no,
They're all 3,000.
Are they new houses, or are they?
no, they're probably
They're all
older.
houses, but they're all houses that are 3 and 4, I'm talking about, I'm not making this up.
Yeah.
This one is 3,400 feet, that's 4,026, that's 3,250.
Because they're full 2.5 stories.
So
Yeah.
they're trying to keep this house as a lower house, which I think we all, I'm talking about as an architect in the town, I think we all want diversity. I don't think we want every house to be a 2.5-story house. So they're trying to
But
do.
you're talking to the choir and some of that.
Yeah, I know.
So it just,
I mean,
I'll
they're.
push back a little bit on your story.
Go ahead.
I live on a 5750 square foot lot, and I'm on a corner, so I have a 20-foot setback on 2 sides of my house. I don't violate any of the, whatever they're called. What are we calling them today? Sorry. I don't have any nonconformities. So I am extremely sympathetic to the idea of building more on the house. But there are some lots which are just too small to envisage putting more house on. And so I understand the desire to put more. I'd put an addition on the back of my house, but it fits within the applicable zoning, and I live in a 6,500 square foot zone. And I've got a tiny lot for that zone. So
You also have less setbacks.
I have 20-foot setback on the side because I'm on a corner lot.
Oh, what do you
I
have?
got two
Two fronts and 2 sides.
So, but my point is I understand that this is a small lot, but also I'm gonna sound like a real cold-hearted person, and I don't mean to be, but the lot was that size when the current owners bought it, and there is a limit to how much house you can put on a lot. And so the request to put more house on a lot than it can accommodate is also something we're concerned about. And so I completely understand the desire to maintain a small house. But when I look at a lot which is small, but isn't this, there's a whole, RG 6.5, there's 6.5 thousand square feet. You've got a whole zone where that's very close to what's allowed. And there are small houses on those lots. So you need to convince me why this lot is more special than an entire zone, RG 6.5.
well, they could keep the open, but they could go up, and that would
Right, so
destroy
that's-
the front of the
and that's-
house.
yeah,
So on a historical perspective, I get what they did and why they did it.
I
And
do
why
as
they
well.
didn't go to the 3rd floor and put dormers in to get more of the space that they need, or they didn't do other things. They also have, the basement probably is not that dry, so going down into creating family space in the basement isn't that realistic, and you would know your house better than me. So I get why they did it, I understand it, design-wise, it is on point. So my bigger concern is just the amount of hardscape back there, but, since engineering is comfortable, Brian, is that correct? You're comfortable with the amount of hardscape in these plans?
Where's less?
Then I feel that they're saving the front of that house.
You can't, this is a distorted view, but there's a stone patio and there's,
Yeah,
this
it's
is
in
all
the
stone.
plan, yeah.
So the addition is actually going out a little under 6 feet beyond this stone. I mean, I know it's a two-story structure, but, it isn't, that's why we're not getting into an issue with the.
And I
So-
I didn't double check, but all your materials are matching existing,
Yeah,
I'm
we're gonna-
assuming based on the way
We're gonna
that,
match corner boards,
Yeah.
clapboard and shingles.
and
asphalt.
windows as well.
Yeah, absolutely, we'll be
So that's
using-
where I'm at, because I think that house, it's a 1911 house, it's really quite lovely, and that's what you see from the street. That the only way they could get more space is to go up, which they can do by right. So they're going the respectable way of going.
And
And I don't disagree with that. I'm actually in a quandary because I think the design is nice. I like the fact that it's in the back and it preserves that. So that's why I am very empathetic, but I wonder if but I am just really concerned about putting a large house on a small lot, which really obviously wasn't designed to take a
So
house.
this is it's not a large house, it's a small lot. This house will be the 6th smallest in terms of finished area of all of the houses, of the 22 neighboring houses. So you can say that the house is too big for its lot,
That's what I'm
and I would
saying.
agree with that, but I want to be, from my point of view, it is not a large house. There are houses that, the house will end up, finished area, at 2,500 square feet. And there will be, I don't have the list, I have the other list in my bag. There will be 16 other houses bigger than it, of the 22. So that's where I'm having a problem, and I think I understand why you guys are having a problem too. But I will, let me say a couple of things in response to what you said a couple of minutes ago.
By the way, I'm not having a problem.
What?
She's not,
I'm not having
I'm the
a
only one who's got a
So,
problem.
no,
But
Brian
has
does too,
Brian
Brian
has a
does too.
problem.
So another thing that I didn't mention is they have a shared driveway. So in addition to having the smallest lot on their side of the street, they also have a shared driveway with the house next to them. And so it forces them to park, and I'll just pass this to the three of you. You can see there are 2 cars parked there. So maybe this is partly what you were asking me earlier. The addition is positioned, I know this, I don't know if you can see this kind of diagonal dashed line
not
right
see it.
there. That's
They can't touch
that's representing one of the 2 cars. This is their driveway right here, so they're just stuck. I mean, besides having a small lot, for them to have a shared driveway. The other thing I do want to say, and this is, I know not something you can count on, but I do want to point this out. By dumb luck, the house next to them, the one most immediately affected by an addition too close to their right side property line, because that's the other piece of relief we're asking for. We're asking for lot coverage relief, and we're asking for right side property line relief. No, we're not worsening the non-conforming, we've stepped it back. But this house right here is way back from their property. Now, I know they could add, and I know it's not fair for anybody to make a ruling that adversely affects them. But right now, if you go out there, there's a huge basketball court, and this house, by luck, coincidentally, whatever, is pushed to its right edge. So there is still a huge amount of space between Tina and Michael's house, 184, and the next one over at 188. So I think that helps. I know they could build an addition, but that is the reality. If you go out and look at it there right now, you will see a tremendous amount of room. Way more, in a sense, the 15-foot setback also results in a minimum of 30 feet between houses. I mean, that's sort of a minimum aspect of zoning side setbacks. There is way more than 30 feet there. There could be 50 feet. I don't know what it is, but it could be 60.
That's well.
But it almost looks like it's a parking lot out there, and I think you've actually approached your neighbors about buying land. I mean,
I did, well, actually, the strange thing is, the house
This
twice
one
from us
has
actually
this-
goes back there like that. And so when that small cape came up for sale, the owner had passed away, I approached my neighbor and I said, let's let's buy it and tear it down and redesign the lots there. The neighbor at that time was retiring and he didn't want to get involved in it, so it didn't go forward, but it was, I mean, we tried to rationalize the lots there.
I mean, this is a very strange strip of,
I think it was to keep the minimum lot size.
yeah. Oh, for them?
Yeah.
Um,
They subdivided to
Well,
make
they're 10,040. Yeah, so they were trying to keep just over 10,000, you're right.
So, you know, my concern here is equity with other properties with this size elsewhere in town, and the concern that we have denied people building, or at least this board has, the ZBA approved it, where they were on a much smaller lot with a smaller setback, and they were going to put a side entrance in their home, and we said it was far too close to the neighbor and it took up too much of the lot. And so we denied it. And so my concern here is a question of equity across all the town, which have small lots, which have perhaps not 5 nonconformities, but certainly there are a lot of older lots with nonconformities. And, you know, so why should we, what is so different about this lot from the other lots in the same circumstance that we have denied in the past? Because we felt that there were encroachments on setback or things like that.
So as a hardship to them as homeowners, I can't speak to what you're talking about, because I don't know which lots and what their
Yeah,
neighbors
yeah.
were. But I'll keep saying that they, relative to their next door neighbors on their side of Mystic Valley Parkway, have the smallest lot. Therefore, they're allowed by lot coverage to have the least amount of square footage, but that, to some degree, is a hardship for them.
It's a hardship.
When you're talking about equity, aren't you talking about equity within a neighborhood and equity within a street? I mean, Winchester is an incredibly diverse,
I'm
area. So you
talking-
have
there are-
houses by the country club and you have houses by the
There are a
tennis.
ton of 6,000 square foot lots in the RDB. There are lots of tiny lots in 10,000 square foot zones.
I live in them.
And so I understand you're living in a 10,000 square foot zone, but there are a lot of neighborhoods where there are a lot of small lots. And so I'm trying to.
So I would argue that if you're in a neighborhood where there's a uniformity of 6,000 foot lots, then it would be extremely difficult for the planning board to make an exception to one of those 6,000 foot lots, because it then sets a precedent for the entire neighborhood to go that way. And what I'm trying to say is, this is the exact opposite of that situation. They have the 6,000 foot lot, that's 11,000, that's 9,000,
No,
that's
I
9,000,
understand.
that's
There-
10,000, the one next to them is 11,000. So the lot right next to them is almost double the size of their lot. And all of these houses have much more finished area than them. So that's not an equity, the equity would be if they were gonna build, if all of their neighbors had 5,000-6,000 foot lots, and they suddenly wanted to build the biggest house, or by 1,000 feet, that would be inequitable. They're trying to get their house to be a little bit bigger. I mean, I guess from a square footage point, you're probably trying to increase it by about 25%, or maybe even 30%. But in terms of gross numbers, to have a house end up at 2,500 or 2,600 square feet of living space is not an unreasonable, I mean, I know the things that are being built, I know the other projects that we're working on. This is a tiny house, the rooms are tiny, when you go on the second floor and you're underneath the roof lines, and and you're getting to either the front or the back, and and they had to break the plate height so that you could stand where the windows are. It's a tiny house. I mean, not a tiny house, it's a small house. It's not a tiny house.
I think it's been very clear that you know exactly what you're doing as an architect, right?
Yeah.
Meaning that there's been zero issues with the design from the historical commission so far, anywhere here as well. I think what at least Diab and I are honing in on, it obviously totally makes sense. You're not asking for the biggest house in the smallest lot. It's almost when Diab's talking about equity, it's obviously not the exact neighbors there. It's really on the other side of the street when there is a whole bunch of 6,000 and 7,000 square foot lots that actually looks quite similar, I guess, in terms of, north of you. So how big are those lots? They're probably around 6,000 to 7,000 Similar?
Yeah, there's 59, 80, 59, 82,
So the- so the-
57. So those are all
Roughly the same.
roughly, I'd say
So-
more in scale with
Right, so I think what Diab and I are saying is that what would really make the difference, like, why couldn't all of those basically go on each of the side setbacks and break their lot coverage? Why should it happen here but not the
Well-
entire north of the street?
A lot of these houses on Myrtle Street are, I mean, I've worked on a couple of them, don't conform. I mean, this one is clearly.
I'm sure they
you know, they're clear, some of them are clearly too close to their property line.
Well, here, I'm gonna help you out here.
Thank you.
So, I'm just gonna help you out in how, you have a hardship because you had a choice to either destroy your historical elevation or not. You chose to keep your historical elevation and go out the back as a choice. You could have gone up, your hardship is actually that, in my opinion.
I agree with you.
The 2940 saying it's a small house, that is bogus. I have 5 children, my house is smaller. We do not have a hardship in size of our house. So that, and I know that people in town have bigger houses and everything. That is not where the hardship lies. It lies is you made a choice to save your front elevation of your historical home. You could have gone up, you could have gotten the square footage in that way and kept your lot coverage and stayed and falled in, but you would have destroyed the historical content of that home. You're giving the town a gift. That is where it comes from. That is why I believe that you are, I find it, there's not an issue at this point. Brian, with that, would you rather that they destroy that front elevation or
No.
just not do anything?
Certainly not. What I think the point I was trying to make is that if this, talking about this specific property, it looks very similar in terms of size and scale to the north side, just north of, there's like 7 or 8 houses. There'd be no reason, I mean, I guess if they're not historical homes, I don't know, but the idea is that
Now,
there's
some of
already.
them are tearing them apart and destroying them. They're making that choice.
I'm not saying that's the answer. Obviously,
Yeah.
the answer would be to somehow adhere.
Mhm.
And if you can't,
So
that's why you're here.
So let me say 2 things. I agree with you about the lots on Myrtle Street. I'm gonna keep coming back to the finished area thing. This house is 3150, this one has 3332, 3400, 4000, 3200, 3700. Just to be clear, by my calculations, they will be at 2,608. If you take the assessor's number, which is 1880, and you add the size of the addition, which is 728, so they won't be at 2,900, they'll be at 2,608. I also, I'm struggling with this issue in my practice. We have client, and in other projects that have come before all of these groups. And honestly, we've done about 200 projects in Winchester. And of those 200, I'm talking about like 25 years where we do, 10 projects a year. It's a lot of work that Leaf Design has done in this town. Of those 200 projects, 2 or 3 of them, and I'm not going to name names or properties, are too big. They're too big. They're too big for the neighborhood, they're too big for the lot, and I feel terrible about them. I try unbelievably hard in our work, my wife and I, to design appropriate additions for houses, for neighbors, for the neighboring houses, for the streets. And the thing that I don't want, and none of you and none of the ZBA, none of historic, last week, you don't want them to sell their house and have a builder buy it who's gonna tear it down in a heartbeat and put up a 2.5-story house that'll be a center entrance colonial, and it'll look like every other friggin' center entrance colonial that's being built all over the place. And that's not why, that's not your job is to predict the future, but I'm just sharing you, that's how in my heart of hearts, how I feel about this kind of project, is they're trying to do the right thing, and they're driving the bus, by the way. This is to their credit, that when my wife and I talked with them about ripping off the roof and building up, you too said, no, we don't want to do that, we don't want to alter the front. And I kind of had a little bit of a eureka moment, like, oh my God, they're absolutely right. Like, thank God for kind of a client who's not just going that way. Because I think it's a really cool house, and when you drive, and it is, by the way, kind of a public house. I mean, Mystic Valley Parkway is a pretty well-traveled street. I think it's a really cute house. I think it's wonderful that it's there relative to all these other big houses. And so I'm not threatening, I mean, this isn't like they're gonna tear the house down, but,
We're well aware of the development priorities.
I mean, look at this,
Yeah.
look at that.
Yeah,
Look at that, you know, to be, can I,
again, like what.
we're not,
what Heather
am
said,
I being,
that's-
am I being recorded?
Yes,
Oh,
but the point is that that's not,
We missed the announcement.
yeah,
Oh.
that's fine. That's not, I think Heather pointed out your hardship much better. I mean, you do, keeping it within the, I applaud what you're trying to do. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I do applaud that. My concern is equity, and there are some lots which just are too small to build larger things on. So this might sort of come back to what Heather was asking before is, do you need such a large addition? One of the things you say is, we're only increasing it by 25%. To my mind, that's, you know, do you need to increase it by 25%? Could you make it smaller and get a little bit more open space? So what I'm kind of looking for is, there's a compromise between what you want in terms of, and what you need. And I don't know where that line is for you folks, but one of the questions I have is, can you make it smaller, still accommodate your needs, and reduce the coverage? Is that a
So
possibility?
Well, we can't get.
You'd
below-
lose-
we can't get
We
below.
went over, yeah, we went over that one. It was
Yeah.
basically,
Oh,
you're
I
doing
agree.
100, you're doing
You can't-
100 square foot
The
addition.
question is, if.
you'd get maybe 48 square feet per floor back if they tightened it up a little bit. That's
I mean,
why,
you still-
if you wanna know my mindset of why, so I asked them why, I got the roof line, they
Yeah.
needed the roof, they needed to adjust that roof line. So they could tighten up and shrink it by like 3 feet in depth, but you're only getting 48 square feet per floor, which is minimal, it doesn't really, it's not that big, and
48
Brian may
feet-
have
48
48
feet is less
feet.
than 1% of lot coverage.
You know,
so it's
is,
gonna-
so that's really where they're going, and that's
But
what
it
they
shows-
could do.
but From my point of view.
And to me, that was just very minimal and had,
But it also shows a commitment to looking at, can we minimize the impact? That's all, so that's kind of, I mean, I think your point is very persuasive, Heather, in terms of what the hardship is. The flip side is there any, is there, you know, can you shrink it to a level which would actually show a commitment to reducing the size? If 16 by 17 is the bare minimum, because that's what you've decided, I mean, there are family rooms which are smaller, there are family rooms which are much larger. You said that the size was driven essentially by the family room. Is it possible to shrink it a bit? And if that doesn't meet with your, then you can say no, obviously, because.
Well, it seems like it's not cost effective. Or it doesn't seem, it's probably, it's not cost effective.
Same
Well-
cost with,
no, the scale too of the side would be adjusted.
I don't normally kind of come around
No, he doesn't.
after an
Pretty
analysis.
much stands his
I
point.
got that from talking with you last week, by the way.
Yeah, but I think Heather might have hit it. I mean, I'm still having issues with this just because, for
Of
what
the
I told you,
nonconformity.
because I told you about the whole north side, there's really nothing preventing, but really what the sell here is that you easily, like Heather said, you easily could have popped off the roof and made something god awful, whatever you want to call it. And you might not, you still would have had to go through ZBA, but it would basically would have been a nothing. But instead, you're trying to do the right thing design-wise, and by doing that, you're breaking a new nonconformity, but I think I see the trade-off. None of my notes go into this, by the way. This is just
I-
me.
Yeah, I mean, I see the trade-offs as well. I'm just really concerned about the concept of equity before the board and other property owners who are going to say, how are you trading off these intangibles, which is historical preservation versus something else?
So
And I'm struggling with that.
So I would urge you to look at the actual size of the house in combination with lot coverage. And I know lot coverage is the zoning codification of that, but I think, and I know I'm dwelling on it, but I do think it's meaningful when you talk about somebody building something that's too big, if they're taking a 4,000-foot house and turning it into a 5,000-foot house, or a 3,000-foot house and turning it into a 4,000-foot house, then I think I understand. So that would be my answer to you. Like, if you're trying to figure out how to keep equity, I would also look at the actual, so by the way, like, this is like a total aside. If you look at other towns' zoning codes, like Newton, they have FAR, floor area ratio, and it's tied into lot coverage, tied into lot size, but they also grade it. So in other words, if you have a lot of a certain range, 4,000 to 5,000, you get a larger FAR number. And as it's almost like a graduated tax. And then also you get, in Newton, you get a bonus if your house was built I think it's 1954 or 1956, I can't remember, it's somewhere in the 50s. So if you have an older house on an older lot, there's an additional, you get an extra 0.3 on the FAR. And that's a way of still controlling lot size and lot coverage and house size, but it's also recognizing what's happening in the 21st century is that people are bigger, they want more space, they need more bedrooms, more bathrooms, bigger kitchens, center aisle, just all of the stuff. I mean, so that would be how I would suggest to you as a group that you look at what you're talking about, but you also just look at the square footage of the house and what seems reasonable for a house.
Yeah, the reason also is that I looked at, because when you look at the aerial and you look at all I'm changing the topic from you, but when you look at the aerial and you look at all the houses around it, the plan that they're presenting and they're asking for is actually very similar. So they're in a box, right now? If you look at, they're all L-shaped, it's very similar to the neighborhood. So they're fitting within the context of the neighborhood. So that's another reason as well, that I was like, it's okay. If everyone was a box and they're going and no one else has going back and like that, then it'd be a different discussion.
Yeah, no, I like I said.
That's why I think
The design works. I have absolutely no complaints about the design. I'm just trying to go across a broader view of what the planning board has, your argument about what's happening in Newton is cogent, but unfortunately.
It has nothing to do with you guys. No, I know, just.
We don't have that.
Yeah, no,
And I'm very sympathetic.
They've got problems too.
I mean, I think Heather pretty much convinced me to, not that we can vote, but to comment.
well, we give comments
Yeah.
because we don't have a majority, so we can't give a vote. But
Right
we
now,
still,
there's only 2 comments that we have, so just,
Yeah, I mean, I would, given the trade-offs, again, my concern or my comment would be, can you make it smaller? It's already been explained to me that that's
minimal
not really
impact.
a
feasible.
good way forward because it doesn't really buy you much and it doesn't cost you folks any less. And I really dislike that we have to deal with economics, but that's the way of the world. So I can't,
So, sorry to interrupt, but I want to say,
Yeah, go
the
ahead.
2 comments that we have right now are saving the front of the house is important, the design is on point, rather than going back and violating the open space percentage makes sense. That was Heather's comment. Your comment was lot coverage should be adhered to as much as possible.
yeah, but I still think that given the alternative between going up or going back, I think it goes back. I think that's better. I don't know that this is saving us from having a large, one of our concerns in town is the smaller houses, but keeping them small so they're affordable. This will not keep this home affordable, so that argument goes to the wayside because it's making it bigger.
But
So
importantly, it will probably make it much less likely that it will get torn down and
Oh.
built by because
Yes.
if they build this addition and they spend, hundreds of thousands of dollars in this project, this jumps this house to a different
It's a lot
economic.
more than that.
Oh, yeah.
So to me, that's.
But on the flip side, all it does is raise the median housing prices in Winchester and make it more difficult for the lower end to get lower end prices. I didn't say that quite coherently.
No, that's true.
There are economics on both sides, so I think it's very, when you choose your arguments, I don't know if that's a strong one.
I think it's true what you're saying. I mean, I also think to their credit, they're not even changing the bedroom count. If this was gonna go from a 3-bedroom house to a 5-bedroom house or something.
Yeah, I mean, we've already got 4 bedrooms, that's quite a lot of bedrooms, so. I mean, to be
Very
honest.
small.
I know they're small, but I live in an 1895 house where they raised like 6 kids in large closets. They didn't qualify as bedrooms because they didn't have heat.
Well, are there any more comments other than the two that we have here, that essentially lot coverage should be adhered to as much as possible, and then, you know, the accolades that Heather talked about of
I
saving
would
the
like to
front
say
of the house?
that the plan is cohesive with the neighborhood.
Thank you.
I'm sorry to put you through this one, we don't even get to
It's
take
actually a
a
very
vote.
good discussion, that's why I'm letting it keep going instead of
Yeah.
calling, just, because it's a good discussion to have, and
Yeah, I actually appreciate the dialogue. So interestingly enough, when 178 was rebuilt, they kind of did the same thing. They took the original kind of foundation of the house. You know, it's the one to the left that's closer to us, you know, closer to town hall. And then they added a big addition on the back. It's the red one. I don't know if you can.
Can't see.
Yeah, it's not on
he
that
can
tree.
get the street view from it. Here comes our little guy.
So,
Yeah.
so that, the red one is the one that got rebuilt, you know, 9 years ago after the fire, and that's actually, my understanding is it's on the footprint of, and then you can see the whole big addition to the back,
Mhm.
which is not that unsimilar to what we're. I mean, I don't
Nah,
know
yours
the
is better.
Yeah. You're
We're on
right.
camera, just to remind everyone, we're on
No,
camera.
it's, the massing is much more
I
tucked
like the
in than
massing yours
yours.
better,
Yeah.
but you also don't have that second story on, well, you do have a second story.
We don't have a
It's
third
not like,
story.
it's
No,
not
no,
third,
no,
it's,
third
yeah, it's,
story,
there's a,
yeah.
yeah.
So I think I've said all that
Well-
is worth me saying, and probably repeating.
Thank you all for just letting me vent a little
I'm,
bit also.
it might have been torture for the two of you.
Yeah.
Conversation on
We appreciate
repeat.
the discussion.
Thank you for letting us have it, because we don't. So are you good with those comments to be
I'm
sent?
good with those
All right,
comments.
so.
Can you repeat those one more time?
Saving the front of the house is important. The design is on point, and rather than going up, going back and violating the open space percentage makes sense in this case. The plan is cohesive with the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Lot coverage should be adhered to as much as possible. I think those are extremely reasonable.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we just have to remember next time we have small lots come up that how we came to this decision.
It was based upon the preservation of the historic front of the house. It really is what
Yeah,
this was. The idea is that, like I said in the notes, that, you know, we get a lot of side setback encroachments, we get a lot of other, you know, when we get those, we typically don't get open space, infractions or infringements. So we can look at that as we go forward and think about why we thought this way on this one. But yeah, like I said, I don't usually change my opinion certainly not during a planning board meeting.
yeah, I usually
So,
don't either.
Are you submitting a letter to the ZBA?
no, I don't.
You just submitted to us?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that. You should actually submit your letters to the ZBA.
We decided not to a long time ago, but I'm happy to do that.
We've had disagreements within the board as to whether it's appropriate.
Anyway,
I think it.
thank you for coming.
Very much,
Thank you.
appreciate
I
it.
think it
Sorry to
is-
put you through the
I think
agony.
no, I think it is appropriate.
I think it's appropriate.
So, and by the way, my expectation for every project that's seeking zoning relief is that when I get to the ZBA, I have to respond to anything that the DRC comes up with, anything that the PB, you know.
Planning board does, but specifically my comments go to the planning board.
Oh,
They
I
do
see.
not go to ZBA.
Oh,
So
I got you.
I give my opinion to
Yeah,
the planning
gotcha.
board, and then the planning board have their own
So
votes.
we can overrule or,
Gotcha.
Right,
And there are
that's
just,
why there's been a lot of debate whether they should or should not.
there's been a.
because who weighs more? Does my one comment, is that worth more than 5 member?
Five elected members.
Right, so it's,
I think
there
it
are
should be
some-
weighted
yeah.
by how much we're paid at the table. Inversely.
One
We're
over.
not paid anything.
All right, thank you
thanks for
very much.
coming.
Thank you
Thank
very
you so
much.
much for your
I'll see
time. Thank
around.
you.
Yes, thank you.
And have some chocolate to make up for the pain.
Yes.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea.
Okay, so let's go on in our schedule.
Was there anything else?
I don't think so. I just want to make sure that there's no new business or any action items that we needed to do before we close.
There's no action items. The only thing I guess that I will say is that,
I have a request.
oh, sorry. No, you go first.
Can you create something on Dropbox with a folder for each meeting and put all the electronic stuff in there?
Yeah, so Suzanne does that already, so all we have to do is put that into a drop, meaning that it's,
Share it.
yeah, it's one PDF that she has, that
Oh,
has
yeah,
all
but
of
just
it.
put it
Yeah,
in the
but no,
Dropbox.
we can do
'cause that way, we can go back and look at things. So if I say next year, if I'm still on the board, I think I still am.
Well, it's actually online. When you go to the agenda, so Suzanne,
Oh, yeah, but that doesn't help me, because the agenda's, finding it on the agenda, I would like something just, so I can just go to our Dropbox and say, here's our meeting, here are the stuff for that meeting. I'd really like it to be split out even more, but that's the easiest,
all right, I can do that.
because I'd like
So
it.
what comes in our packets, or are you also
Yeah,
talking
he
about
just
the
wants-
decisions that came out of that meeting as well?
That would be really nice, but I don't want to push my luck this late in the evening. I mean, I would love to see a really nice navigable hierarchy, so we could, so for instance, you could say, hey, we had this property come up. Which property was it? Oh, it was that one on Lockland. Let's go and look at what was presented, so we can come and examine why we came to that decision. And so that we can, I mean, we could go to the minutes. We haven't discussed what's happening with our minutes, but
It's posted, or it's
Good.
about to be posted.
But I'm just, it's also great to have things for archival
I will
purposes.
see how, so it's, like I said, Suzanne organizes all of that.
Yeah.
So it's a question of how do we just do it on Dropbox and that's that, and how it's gonna be organized, we can talk about that.
Yeah, that would
Okay.
be great.
Okay.
In terms of other new business not known at the time, we're meeting next week, the 17th, for a regular planning board meeting. 10 Converse Place is coming back. And that's, I think, the last meeting that, I think we had told them that we're gonna do, I think we said 1 or 2 for each more, and then we're
You
kind
said
of.
2 more for we
Two
said
more.
2
Two
more.
more, okay, so this is one.
My concern with Converse though is we also do not have a design consultant on that one. We have a
We-
design consultant.
We have Dennis.
No,
now.
Dennis.
On that one, we do,
Dennis is on 10
my
Converse.
concern is that
We'll talk offline about that.
okay, sounds good.
Okay, so we have Dennis working on Converse Place.
Technically not yet, but he knows that so the contract has been written, they've both been signed by all parties, the PO needs to get created, but yes. we
Other
are
than
all-
administrative
He
details.
is, for all intents and purposes, he's working on 10 Converse Place.
But he's
As-
not working with anyone or anything except
He
through
is
the
not,
planning
he is not
board.
talking, yes, he is not
He
talking
is
to anybody.
Given clear
uh,
instruction to talk to go through the planning board to
Correct.
talk to
But
the
when
owner.
is he gonna come before us? When does he start working, when did he start
At the
really
next
working
meeting.
on it?
I'm gonna see if he can come to the 17th, but it's unclear if he can.
Okay, that's next week,
Correct.
okay.
And we should be getting then those drawings on Friday this week. They said we would be
We
getting
made a
them.
big stink about them not
Please.
having it,
Please remind me.
so I will remind them again,
Yeah.
and we'll,
Yeah.
It wasn't we,
yeah.
there was a big stink.
There was a big stink, but it doesn't hurt to remind them that it still smells.
Okay, so that's that. What about Abbey Road?
So Abbey
I
Road,
just wanna get a better feel of
right,
what's going
so
on
we
for our
had a
agenda.
meeting, with the proponent today. It looks like it's, more like the 24th potentially, but some of it depends, on what legal counsel says.
Okay, and the 24th is also when we are seeing,
The 24th is very packed.
Concom.
So 24th is 45 minutes for Conservation Commission, and then we have an undetermined amount of time for the master plan. I'm hoping it could just be like 20 minutes because we're not really,
That's the
we're
final.
not making any edits then. We're voting
there
it.
may be some last minutes, but the vote would be on these changes.
And then 654 Main is coming in for 45 minutes. So I told the proponent of.
That's in the CBD.
Right. I told the proponent of Abbey Road that maybe we would have 20 to 25 minutes on the 24th. And it
And
looks
that's
like-
looking for a release of lots?
Yes, that's looking for release of lots and whether or not there's a tri-party agreement in place or not, that's totally, I talked with legal today, it's totally possible to release you can't release all the lots, because then you either have to have something, so if there's no tri-party agreement on file, like that hasn't been worked out yet, we're nearly there, then we could release all except for one, and that lot would cover the cost of anything that still needs to get done. So
Okay.
I'm working with legal on that, but we're shooting towards a 24th release of some number of lots.
Is that doable for engineering to do your part to meet the 24th?
Not really is the answer, right?
So what is our obligation to have to meet on the 24th versus push, because there's town meetings, now all the town meeting stuff's starting to come in. And we have-
Well, I mean, so Brian, why don't you answer her
You wanna come up
question?
to the table and get some chocolate?
yeah, come hang out with us.
Yeah.
Would you like an orange?
No, thank
I was gonna come up with a
Right,
joke
so-
right then, but I couldn't
so-
think of it.
I mean, there's a number of items that need to get finished. Whether or not they're on or off the punch list is totally up to him of whether he finishes them.
Well, yeah, so I think the first issue is we have to agree on the final punch list, and anything that's checked off after that doesn't matter. This is what's gonna get, costed out as part of the bond agreement. But anything that's being taken off of that has to be inspected, and then we have to determine if it's up to our standards and,
To plan.
and to plan. So those things do take a
So-
little bit of time.
So my question then goes, do you have the time to do it between now and the
It
24th?
depends on, well, you guys are gonna go next week, right? And
Yeah, so I think he sent it this evening, a list of things that we need to look at. So we're gonna start looking at them. We're gonna try our hardest, but we didn't want to make any promises we couldn't keep.
So can we make a decision conditional on engineering's approving the?
Well, that would just be me putting it on the agenda, so I'm just gonna be
I
very
think it
clear.
makes sense to
It's
put it for
conditioned,
for
it will be
25 minutes.
conditioned. I'll
I mean,
pull it from the agenda.
If engineering has nothing.
If engineering's not ready, I'll pull it from the agenda. If they are ready or they want us to bring something before us, we'll keep it on the agenda. Just so you know, but I
No.
set the agenda anyways.
And I do think it depends on what legal says too, how
Yeah,
doable it'll be.
well then
It's one
engineer's
option-
gonna say it's not doable too. so-
Well, there's
Yeah.
one option that's, a lot easier than the other, so.
Right, but if engineering's not done, could we still say we'll release some of the lots conditional on engineering signing off?
That's,
Yeah, well, that would basically mean whether that item is not on the punch list or if it's on the, so if he said he has done these number of things, they're gonna go inspect them. If they're good, then they check off on them. If they're not good, then it probably would get incorporated into
In
the
the
punch
punch
list
list.
saying that you need to do this.
Okay,
So you doesn't have to be anything specific.
Right,
It's all
okay.
about the punch list and the bond.
we just have to agree on the punch list.
Well, we don't.
I was speaking of the town.
Right,
the
so
road.
engineering will have a punch list and they will come up with an estimate. And then we would use that as a very strong recommendation to
Right.
make the bond that number.
And make sure that you include our overhead
That's all gonna be
inside those
included.
costs.
Yeah, no, that's part of the
I don't want any of our
analysis.
staff charging the town for,
So as of right now,
Management
we're
of
going towards the 24th. We are not meeting with him on the
Okay.
17th.
So
sounds good.
can I make a request of engineering since it's at the table and I can talk to Brian and Brian?
We're much more loose right now, go for it.
So one of the things I noticed in this Cape Cod tree, land, and clearing bylaws, there's actually quite a bit of engineering speak in here in terms of slopes and things like that. And one of the things I would like to know is what engineering thinks of it, in terms of whether it's something that is doable or not.
I can send it to you.
Yeah, it's just, looking at it so I get an idea of how it fits in with the way Winchester does things and whether it's
Winchester
applicable.
does it the simple way. If there's a way to achieve the goal being as simple as possible, that's the way that town
That's-
meeting prefers it to go.
Well, that's why.
Looking at this, it's so complicated. They want anyone to be able to pick it up, read it, understand what their obligation is. And
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is this is aimed at, lots of 40,000 square feet or more.
Yeah,
So that's part of where I'm trying to understand what's practical in town and whether your understanding of the words is the same as, well, I don't know if they're the same as what they wrote, but I know we've had disagreements as to what engineering thinks words mean and what some proponents think words mean. So just sort of,
Depends on who you ask. Yeah, send it to me and
Yeah.
I can
We can go from
yeah,
there.
my thoughts on
yeah,
it.
because we're gonna be
Well-
going right to engineering. And then, subdivision closeout, do we need to add that into our agenda coming up?
Yeah, that should always be well.
Did you hear from legal on any of that?
No, that meeting has not occurred yet, but the meeting that will occur is supposed to come up with some type of a protocol to deal with these unfinished subdivisions where there's no money left in escrow. So there's supposed to be a decision that's, probably based on legal, the planning board, and maybe even the manager on how to deal with this, but that has not happened.
Okay, And then, did you ever hear back from legal regarding, abandoned houses? Abandoned,
No, that fell off my radar.
okay, can you just send her an email? Cause we asked legal directly in our meeting and didn't hear back, so just send her an email to follow up.
Yeah, to
Any
Jillian.
big issues the engineering has going on that you want the planning board to tackle? Trees, drainage,
Nothing.
plan requirements,
Infiltration systems for everyone?
Well, certainly as the,
curb cuts?
as the MS4 permit kicks into gear, considering different drainage bylaws, I think is certainly on the radar,
That's
so.
coming up. I think that is actually, right, that came in as one of the things that we are responsible for out of.
Well, we pulled hydrology out of the master plan, so maybe we aren't.
It's coming our way.
Oh, like a wave of water.
All right, anything, do you have,
No, I've run out of ideas.
all right. Thank you.
You can't even motion
Thank
to
you.
adjourn.
We can't even motion to adjourn. She walked out before we could motion.
It's 10:05.
Well, I have a great desire to adjourn. Will someone second that?
I'll second it. The two of us are adjourning this meeting.
All right.
So the thing I have problem
Thanks,
with,
WinCam.
thanks,
Thank you,
WinCam,
WinCam, very much.
is whenever you say infiltration systems, I think of like, spies.
Like, oh,